Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the newest show here on DSM Media, The Sports Raid. I am your newest podcast host, Cole, and I am here with DSM Media co-founder Dylan. Dylan, how you doing today?
What's going on, buddy? Thank you for having me on the first episode. It's a privilege, and we're happy to have you here on Team DSM.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So those of you who don't know me, I've had my own podcast for about a few months now. I talked to Kata and Dylan, and we thought it would be a great idea for me to join the team and bring it over to the DSM side of things. So I changed it up a little bit, changed up the style. We're going to have some new stuff. It's going to be more professionally made, and it's going to get less stale. So I'm happy for this opportunity. And, I wanted to come on and be all excited and have this great energetic return, but it's hard to after last night's performance from our very own Sixers. It was brutal, to say the least. It was a bloodbath. Nothing went right. That is not how I wanted it to go. Do you have any thoughts on that game right off the bat?
Well, it's hard not to overreact, right? When there was so much drama that went into last night, and you're on your home floor, and Ben's returning, and Harden faces his old team, and you just wanted them to show up. Like I would have felt a little bit better. They could have lost last night if they just showed up. The problem is 90% of the team shrunk in the moment. Tyrese Maxey didn't show up. Obviously, James Harden has his worst shooting percentage night in the last 5 years. Tobias Harris showed up a little bit, but wasn't aggressive. Joel Embiid, who even led the team in points with 27, was 5 of 17 shooting, I think. So he didn't show up. So Brooklyn came in. It was all business for them. And the Sixers just looked like they put too much personal stuff into the game, and they shrunk in the moment. But bottom line is, it's embarrassing. It sucked to watch, but it's a regular season game. It's one of 82. You got to take it on the chin. No, Brooklyn didn't win the trade. Yes, I still believe the Sixers can make an NBA Finals run. So last night doesn't deter me from any long-term, Sixers outlook, but it sucks in the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like everybody, all you heard about leading up to the game, and even from us and every media outlet, it's Ben Simmons return. And honestly, I think part of the reason Ben Simmons sat on the bench is because he knew he was going to be in people's heads more. He knew that if he sat on the bench, if he was going to be in the arena, that it was going to be somewhat of a distraction for the Sixers. I mean, Danny Green just was talking nonstop about it. It was everybody's focus. But the Nets came to play basketball. The Nets played one of their best games of the season, and we played, other than maybe that Celtics game a few weeks ago, our worst game of the season.
Correct.
All in all, but like you said, I don't think this deters me either from any long-term. I still think the Sixers would beat the Nets in a 7-game series based off the fact that Kyrie doesn't play in the home games. So yeah. Kyrie was a big impact last night.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I don't want to necessarily see Brooklyn in round one. No, like when you think of a top 3 seed, you don't expect to see Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving in round one, right? But yeah, I think the Sixers could beat Brooklyn. I don't know if I would bet a lot of money on it in a 7-game series, but they definitely can beat Brooklyn. You said it perfectly. Like last night's just one of those nights where, and it was shitty timing, but the Sixers shoot 33% from the field, and Brooklyn shoots like 50%, 48% from the field, and like 50% from 3-point land. They couldn't miss. The Sixers couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. What comes together is the perfect disaster, and it's on national TV, of course.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that there probably is a little bit of trouble in paradise for us right now. Obviously, this is the first game that James Harden lost, and who was to, and the way everything surrounded it. But I think the best thing we talked about on the pregame show yesterday, the best thing for the Sixers is put this damn Ben Simmons thing to bed.
Yeah.
It's over. He's
right, 100%.
He was here. Things didn't work out. He had his return. But if we keep dwelling on it, it's only hurting us at this point.
100%. And you would think that would make Joel Embiid and James Harden and all these guys show up yesterday. That's the only thing that's still carrying a little bit of weight in my head is they shrunk. Like it's hard to just brush that part off. Like when the lights were bright, you shrunk in that moment. I hope that doesn't happen when the lights are bright again come playoff time. But it's one of 82. Take it on the chin, move on. Like you said, to Ben Simmons, you got it out of the way. He returned. You got your asses beat. Now, hopefully James Harden, what he said in the post-game press conference is true. He came out and said, this is good for us. We got our asses kicked. There's no way around it. Now let's see how we bounce back from it. They get a nice match. They get a couple days off, and then they get to go play in Orlando versus a not so good Orlando Magic team, and hopefully they can get right with that game with Denver following on Monday. But yeah, it's a weird feeling here, man. Like, I know you're probably feeling the same, and our whole group chat's feeling the
Yeah,
aftermath of it. Like, we know not to overreact, and we know we can brush it off, but it's taken a little longer than we'd like because the game meant more than a normal regular season game.
Yeah, my phone yesterday, as that game went on, and it just once they settled in, we weren't winning that game. My phone just blew up, just kept going off. People were just all on me about it. And, I mean, it sucks, but at the end of the day, like James Harden said, maybe this is what they needed. I mean, I've seen it plenty of times. Basketball teams, whether it's college or professional, get their asses kicked one time and then they go on a run.
Well, let me ask you this, Cole, because you're a UNC fan and one of the co-founders here, Scotty, is a Duke fan, right? Duke loses at home at Cameron Indoor in Coach K's last home game versus North Carolina. Is that deterring people who thought Duke was an NCAA tourney favorite heading into that game? Do people come out from that loss on that big stage saying, "Oh no, Duke can't win it now"?
No.
I think so. It's the same thing here.
Exactly. That's exactly what is like. Yeah, was it a good win for North Carolina? Absolutely.
Yes.
Does it make North Carolina, all credit to North Carolina, just like all credit to the Nets yesterday? Do I think the Nets are better than I thought? Absolutely. But I don't think Duke was worse than I thought. I don't think the Sixers are worse than I thought. Just like I said after the North Carolina game was, Duke's probably still the better team than North Carolina. But you put a game with that much meaning, and same thing with Duke. They had something else that they were focused on. They were focused on it being Coach K's last game and not playing North Carolina. And I think that was a similar thing with the Sixers last night.
Listen, sports in general have that fight, that war kind of mentality, and people make a lot of, connections between war and sports, right? And sports teams. And sometimes they annoy me. And obviously, as Eagles fans with Nick Sirianni, we heard all year long how it's a boxing match, right? Round 1, round 2, etc. I kind of feel it here. Like, you got punched in the mouth. You got knocked the F out. How do you respond? Right now, the shitty part for us as fans is that taste in our mouth is going to last a lot longer because we don't get to see Brooklyn for the rest of the year. Right. So, yeah, okay, we could go and beat up on Orlando Sunday. Is that going to make me feel a little better? Yeah. But at the end of the day, we know what just happened against Brooklyn, and that's not the Brooklyn Nets. But you just have to get over that and you have to respond. You get a nice test on Monday at home against Denver. So it'll be very telling how the Sixers bounce back, because at the end of the day, they're 5-1 with James Harden. The one is a bad one, but they're 5-1 with James Harden and Joel Embiid playing together. The lack of cohesion, the lack of reps together showed last night. How many times coming around a screen with that little handoff did that get deflected going the other way for fast break points by the Nets? Seth Curry getting his hands in passing lanes. Come on, dude. That's not going to That's not going to happen later on in the season. The Nets, like I said, the Nets shooting 48 to 50%, while the Sixers are shooting 32%, not from three, Cole, from the field.
Yep.
It doesn't happen.
James Harden literally not hitting anything but his 3-3-pointers,
let me run through this real quick, just so everyone who, because people are going to look at the score and, they got their ass kicked. You're damn right they got their asses kicked. And part of it, sure, you can give props and credit to Brooklyn for showing up and playing D. Kyrie took on the challenge of guarding James Harden. Sure. Let's look at these field goal attempts, shall we? Joel Embiid, 5 of 17 from the field. James Harden, 3 of 17 from the field. Matisse Thybulle, 1 of 5. Tyrese Maxey, 2 of 7. Shake Milton, 0 for 6. Are you joking? In what world do you expect to win or even be in that game last night? So people have to kind of take it with a grain of salt. Like, props to Brooklyn, like you said. But come on.
Yeah, and like you said, coming up, you got the Magic. You have to beat the Magic. You have to take care of business, obviously. And you got a tough game against the Nuggets on Monday. Another game you have to win now. You want to start to get that momentum back, and that's gonna be a big game. You got two of the preliminary MVP candidates. Speaking of MVP candidates, let's get into the next topic we want to talk about, and that's our top 5 MVP candidates in the NBA. I did this throughout the NFL season. Each week I gave my top 5. I ended up not being very close from the end of the season, except I had Brady at 2 every week. So let's hear who's your number 5 candidate right now for MVP.
My number 5, if I have to go in order, I guess I'd say KD. Because before, the injury, he did have the Nets as the 1 seed, obviously missing Kyrie for a lot of the season, and James Harden was, departing, and they were the 1 seed before everything kind of went to shit. And now you see him come back, and I believe he's averaging 29 a game or whatever. So even though the Nets, standing wise, they're a play-in team right now, but KD's season, it's hard not to include him.
Yeah, Katie was one of those guys that I thought about. I just look at it as last year. Part of the reason Joel didn't win it was because of how he missed those
Time
2 weeks.
missed, yeah.
Time missed. So I'm going to put a guy who has been outstanding this year and has his team in a lot better spot than many people thought. And I got John Moran at number 5. What he's done for the Grizzlies, he's opened up Desmond Bane's game. He's opened up Jaren Jackson Jr.'s game. And now he has the Grizzlies as the number 2 seed, which if you would have told me the Grizzlies were a 2 seed, I would have said you were a lunatic. I had the Grizzlies as a playing team to start the season, which I was wrong. And I love watching the Grizzlies play. I love Desmond Bane. They just play overall. They play as a team, and it's all led by John Morant.
First of all, speaking of Desmond Bane, the dude's built like an NFL linebacker. I don't know how he's a lethal 3-point shooter with those shoulders, but
Yeah.
number 4 is John Morant for me. You're 100% right. The fact Memphis went from a borderline playing team last season to the number 2 seed, and in large part, actually, for the most part, it's because of that dude. He's not just affecting the game. Like getting his team wins and in the stat category, he's must watch TV. Like the shit this kid can do, athletic wise, getting out on the open floor. Obviously, his in air adjustments around the rim. He's must watch TV. Memphis doesn't get that recognition a lot on national TV, so a lot of people don't get to see him. But yeah, Ja Morant's definitely top 5, and I have him at 4.
Yeah. My number 4 is another guy who stepped up a lot, but he stepped up more for different reasons, is DeMar DeRozan. That Bulls team was supposed to be a top 3, top 4 team in the East, and they probably will end up around there. And I know they've had some trouble against the upper echelon teams, but what DeMar DeRozan has done, I think he set a record at one point this season for the most 30-point games in a row. And his 2 main guys, Lonzo Ball and Zach LaVine, have both been injured on and off throughout the season. Not having a consistent number 2 throughout the season and be able to do what he's done for the Bulls, I just think I have to include him in my top 5, and I have him at number 4.
All right, at number 3, this is a toss-up, right? Because at 1 through 3, I have the big fellas.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I want to go 1, 2 with the center, so I guess at 3, I'm going to roll with the Joker right now. Dude's got no help, and Denver is a 40-win team, right? They have the same amount of wins as the Sixers. So if you thought Joel Embiid had no help early on this year, missing obviously the max contract player and Ben Simmons all season, Joker really has no help, and his numbers are still phenomenal. Obviously, let's see what he's averaging. 26, 8, and 14, basically, on 57% shooting, 35% from 3, and 80% from the line. It's hard not to include them. I hate the argument between the two of them because you can like both of their games between Joel Embiid and the Joker. You don't have to argue which center is better, right? And they play different styles of ball anyway. But he's definitely top 3 to me.
Yeah, my number 3 is another one of the big fellas, and I'm sure he's probably your number 2, and that's Giannis. He's arguably the best player in basketball right now. I mean, we all know Chris Middleton doesn't show up in the regular season. Yeah, Drew Holiday's having a pretty good year, but there's been times where I've watched Giannis literally will the Bucks to wins, and it's just something you can't ignore. I mean, especially after what he did last year, and this team's not playing like they did last year, and I'm sure Chris Middleton and all those guys will step up in the playoffs, but what Giannis does is special. A guy who's that big and that athletic and that freakish. There's a reason he's called the Greek Freak. So he's my number 3 for my MVP candidate.
He's my number 2. For all the reasons that you said, he's averaging 29.7. So for Joel Embiid, I don't know if he's still averaging above Giannis right now, but Joel Embiid was the leading scorer for quite some time, averaging around that 29 to 30 point mark. Giannis is right there, right? Averaging basically 36 and 11 and a half boards, 55% shooting from the field. He only shoots 30% from 3, but he knows when to shoot the 3, unlike a former guy in Philadelphia. And like you said, he's arguably the best player in the world right now. Like, I think a healthy Kevin Durant is the best player in the world.
Yeah.
Giannis is number 2 probably. So yeah, he's number 2 for me. And the Bucks are in that 2 seed right now as well. So
Yeah. My number 2 is the other big man. I got to go Jokic. I mean, like you said, no help, literally none.
I wonder who number 1 is.
I wonder who, man. I wonder who our number ones are going to be. But Jokic, no help. I mean, he's 7'1" and he can pass the ball like he's a point guard. You know, I'm not even going to say second or first best. He's one of the best centers in the league. He's a generational talent. And what he's done without Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr., I mean, he's playing with Monte Morris out there.
Exactly.
It's undeniable. You have to give credit where credit is due. So Jokic is my number 2. So
Yeah.
let's reveal your number 1. I hear it might be a shock to everybody.
It's the process, dude. It's the most. So here's the thing, right? If I called Giannis and Kevin Durant the best players in the world, how are they not? No. Joel Embiid isn't the best player in the world right now. He's the most dominant player in the world right now who can be the best player in the world on a night-to-night basis at times, right? So Joel Embiid's numbers speak for themselves this year. Averaging close to 30 points per game and like 11 rebounds per game. His assist totals are up. Obviously, his shooting percentage is ridiculous, and he shoots close to 85% from the free throw stripe, right? His effect, like, this is the biggest thing. Last year, why didn't he win it? Like you said, time missed. They were the number 1 seed, but he had that max contract player in Ben. Tobias Harris was almost an all-star, right? He had some help last year. This year, he's better. He's more dominant. His numbers are better. And without a max contract player with less help, this dude kept this team around the 2 and 3 seed all year long. That speaks for itself. Like, that's more impressive to me than them getting the 1 seed last year.
Absolutely.
So Joel Embiid, to me, I don't care, what the numbers said last night. I know he's had some off nights. Obviously, Miami, he was off last night. It's not a great look, but the overall numbers speak for themselves. The run of 25-point games, the run of 30-plus straight games, he's ridiculous this year. He's found ways to beat great teams. And that's another thing, like, not to go back to the Sixers, but people are going to discredit the Sixers for that loss last night. Oh, they lost to the Nets, who are an actual contender. Look at some of the teams on his resume that he's beaten pre-James Harden. They've beaten Denver. They've beaten, I'm pretty sure that was without him, actually, maybe. They've beaten Miami before. They beat Brooklyn with Harden and Durant. They beat Milwaukee. They've beaten Boston. They've beaten the Cavs. They swept the Bulls. They've beaten a lot of top-tier teams in this league so far this season, and that's all on his resume without help.
Yeah, absolutely. He's definitely my number 1 as well. I mean, when 30 points becomes a regular occurrence for you, like we were talking about how he had an off night last night and he had 24 points. 27 points. And he had an off night last night. And I know people are like, oh, he gets fouled so much. It's only because he shoots free throws.
Because he's so dominant.
Because you can't stop him. The only way you can stop him is make him shoot free throws. And if he would have made all of his free throws yesterday, he probably would have had like 40.
Yeah.
It's something that we haven't seen since probably Shaq. Somebody who's that dominant and that athletic, and he can do so much. He can knock down a 3. He can pass the ball. He can get to the basket.
Dude, he brings the ball up the floor.
Mm-hmm.
Like, obviously, like, Jokic does the same thing, but like I said, they're different. Jokic has that, I don't know, that ball handling ability to him, right? He's a little thinner. He's a little more agile. Joel is just this 7-foot, like, boom. Like, shouldn't be able to bring a basketball coast to coast and finish at the rim with an N1, and he does it. So,
yeah,
he definitely does things that we've never seen before.
I definitely think that as of now, you have to bring the MVP to Philly. But with that being said, let's talk about something that involves another Philadelphia MVP. The MLB lockout, thank Lord, is finally over, and we will have baseball coming here very shortly. I believe April 7th is opening day.
Yeah.
So, how do you feel right now with baseball being back?
It definitely put a sense of relief in me yesterday, obviously without a Sixers played out, but baseball is just like a comfort sport to me. Like, obviously, like, come postseason time, it gets more exciting, and opening day is more exciting, but to have a Phillies game every night throughout the summer at 7:05 p.m., it's just like you kick back and you watch the Phillies. Like it's nice to have. And the thought of not having that this summer because millionaires and billionaires want to argue over player drafts and money really bothered me. The fact that they were able to get it done yesterday, obviously people kept saying, "Oh, you're just hold out hope because it's not going to happen." Obviously, they were able to get it done, and now the fun part starts because I love free agency. Like in every sport, I love free agency time. And right now, obviously, with the NFL period opening up soon, but baseball, you have a very small window. Obviously, spring training for some teams start today. So, like, you got to get going now. So, obviously, the Phillies have a lot of holes to fill. Obviously, the report came out this morning that Bryce Harper is stumping for Chris Bryant to become a Philadelphia Philly. Obviously, Kyle Schwarber's name is out there. Nick Castellanos' name is out there. There's a lot of big name bats and players that the Phillies are targeting, and they had to come away with at least one. I would hope.
I would hope. My thing is similar to what you said, a comfort sport. I'm not. I mean, I'm not a big baseball guy. I'm a big MLB guy. I'm a big Phillies guy. Like I played lacrosse growing up. I've always been a lacrosse over baseball guy. But there's just something about the Phillies being on. It's like a Tuesday night. I can just remember Tuesday night. I'm 14 years old. I just was outside all day with my friends. I come back and I'm sitting in the AC and I'm just watching the Phillies play.
Right.
It's just even when they were horrible, it was just always something. It's like there's nothing like going to a baseball game with your dad or your friends.
Light out like pretty soon. I'm pretty sure on Monday the clocks go forward. That's the point. Like it stays light out till 7:30, 8 p.m. and the Phillies had just started. It's like, oh, this is amazing.
And like growing up, like when baseball starts, it's that time of the year. School's almost out. You got summer coming up, and then even like the fun part of the school year is when baseball season is while baseball season's going on, and then once it ends, after Christmas, school sucks. But at the end of the day, I'm just happy it's back. I'm happy it's back, and like you said, the Phillies have to get a bat. They need some pitching too. They need some help with the pitching. Oh, yeah. I do expect them to make some noise. I do think Bryce Harper is not going to sit there, have an MVP season, and come so damn close to bringing this team to the playoffs for the first time in over a decade that he's going to he's not going to go out there and push for Bryant, Castellanos, or somebody along those lines. I want Castellanos or Bryant. Those are the two guys I want the most. Those are the two guys I'd be happiest with. But at the end of the day, baseball is back, and it is coming quick. And honestly, I wouldn't be shocked if we start getting free agent deals within the next few days.
Oh, the next few hours, I would assume, dude. Like you have a very small window, and last night I expected stuff to break out last night. Nothing has yet. Stuff's going to start to pile up. I feel like once the first big domino falls, they're all going to fall. It's going to have a trickle down effect, right? But it's interesting you say that though, because obviously I'll love either, right, of Castellanos or Chris Bryant, but Schwarber's now. Castellanos and Chris Bryant are more all around ball players, right? They're quicker on the base paths. They're better in the field, right? I think they're a little bit younger. But Schwarber bombs at Citizens Bank Park, dude. Maybe leading off for the Phillies this year.
Especially now that we have DH. Now that we need.
And I don't think it's out of question where they could grab two of them. Now, not Castellanos and Bryant, but I think you could pair Schwarber with one of them. I don't know how much he's asking for, but I think that's not out of the realm of possibility. And
I think my thing is I think Schwarber might be asking for a little bit more now that there is a DH. Now that
that's very true.
His value went up in the National League because there is a DH now, and really, when you're playing with Schwarber, you can put him in the outfield, but it's just you'd rather not. You'd rather use him as the DH spot, which I definitely think he's going to have now. Hopefully, it's with him. Perfect case scenario for me would be Bryant and Schwarber or Castellanos and Schwarber, either of those. But I guess we'll have to see.
If I had to guess, Chris Bryant's the guy simply because of who wants him in the pinstripes.
Yeah, and because he can play third base and the outfield.
Oh yeah, well that's everything. Like that's huge for the Phillies, right? But if the MVP of the league, if the $330 million man calls your name and you're like, they're boys. Like it's not just like, oh, he sees a great talent. Chris Bryant.
I think they played growing up together.
Yeah,
like both from Vegas.
Yeah, I'm sure they're talking, and it's not like that. He's not trying to force the Phillies' hands into a sign and trade with Chris Bryant, right? With the Giants, Chris Bryant can just sign on the dotted line, and he's a Philly. So I think that's the move that gets done. I'd actually be surprised if Chris Bryant's not a Philly. I know that sounds crazy to say because it's a big name, and Philly don't normally go together outside of Bryce Harper. But he's got some pull, and I'd be surprised if Chris Bryant was like, nah, I'm going to sign elsewhere.
I think, yeah, I definitely think, especially if they can pull that off and they can get a pitcher or they can get a Schwarber. I think this might be the year for the first time since I was 8 years old that the Phillies make the playoffs.
I'm 100% with you. I thought they had a good shot last year. Obviously, fell apart again at the end of the season. But with the departure of Freddie Freeman, it seems like now it's not a done deal, but it doesn't seem like he's going to be back in Atlanta.
I think he's the first player to sign. I read a report that he's gonna be the first player to sign. I think God, I hope it's not to the Dodgers because like they don't need any more. They're literally the Avengers of
Dodgers or Yankees. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it'll probably be the Dodgers or Yankees. I mean, those two, they're like the Avengers and the Justice League when it comes to teams, but
Right. Their rosters.
Yeah.
But I think that's huge, right? Because you're taking away now. Obviously, if Ronald Acuna Jr. is healthy, which he will be this year, if you're talking all around baseball player, Acuna is
top 3.
He might be better than Freddie Freeman, but that bat, that leadership, that first base glove for Atlanta is the reason they won the World Series last year, plus their depth at the deadline. But moving him, that opens up everything for the Phillies. Now, I know the Mets obviously going out and getting Max Scherzer, and they're trying to stack things up again, and they got a new owner or whatever. But I think the Phillies will have room to make a run this year. But to your point, like we want to focus on the sexy names. We want to focus on the bats and the Schwarbers and the Castellanos and the Chris Bryants. They need help in other areas too, being in their rotation, the back end of their rotation, and their bullpen, right? Because if let's lay out their rotation right now, you're rolling out Zach Wheeler, right? Who you're hoping for what? Another Cy Young type of year out of Zach Wheeler. Now, I think Zach Wheeler is going to be phenomenal this year. I don't know if he's going to be top 3 in Cy Young voting.
No, I don't know. I don't know if he can repeat that performance.
Right.
But I definitely
Aaron Nola?
Yeah.
What's Aaron Nola anymore?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Aaron Nola is a solid, he's a solid guy to have in the back end of your rotation, I feel like at this point. But for him to be your 1 or 2, I don't know. I don't know if you can do it anymore.
And then what do you have? Zach Eflin? Showed glimpses last year. Was hurt a lot last year. Is he going to be healthy all year? And then who the hell is at the back end of the rotation now? Because obviously Chase Anderson and Matt Moore didn't work out. Spencer Howard, who they moved, didn't work out. I don't know.
They got to find pitching. They need pitching bad. They need pitching bad, but they also
Corey
need
Knebel was a good signing before the lockout happened.
I forgot. I totally forgot that they signed Corey Knebel.
It's a nice. That's a nice signing in the back of their bullpen.
That's another guy to have in the bullpen rotation. To have in there to help boost that. But I feel like they have the ability to go sign a solid 2 or 3 guy, solid number 2 or 3.
I think that's a bigger concern, honestly, Cole. Like I think they're like hot take because I know how many blown leads the bullpen has given up over the last couple seasons. I think their bullpen is better than the back end of their rotation. Oh, Ranger Suarez. Sorry, we forgot about him. But is he going to repeat the minimal outings that he had last year? I don't know. He was always a bullpen guy.
Yeah, I feel like that's another thing is if they sign a solid starter, they can move somebody like Ranger Suarez back to the bullpen.
100%.
They can do something like that, and then you have somebody like you got Zach Wheeler, a solid number 2, Aaron Nola, Eflin, and another solid back end guy. You can move Ranger Suarez to the bullpen. You have the ability to do stuff like that.
I agree. I think Chris Bryant, a solid number 2 starter. I don't know. I haven't checked the names, honestly, so I don't even know who's out there to be a number 2 for this team. But yeah, just a couple pieces, and 2 of them have to hit, right? Mm-hmm. Like that big time player, whether it's Chris Bryant or Castellanos, has to hit, and then that starter has to hit. You cannot afford to miss there.
Mm-hmm. I know exactly. Yep, I completely agree.
No more Vince Velasquez starts.
No more. Can we just get Vince Velasquez off the team?
He might be, honestly. I don't know.
Yeah, I think he might be. So,
wait, no, he is. We moved him last year. It seems like an eternity ago.
I know. I didn't even remember. I might have to look this up. It
seems like so long ago that the Phillies played baseball. I'm pretty sure Vince Velasquez is a Padre, or was a Padre at the end of last season.
I'm looking it up now. I mean, I vaguely remember it, but at the same time, I also remember him being a Philly.
Let me
He's
see.
currently a free agent, and he was on the Padres. He was on
Yeah.
the Padres, but he's a free agent now, and I would bet my entire life
Thank the Lord.
that they wouldn't bring him back in.
Yeah.
So, one sport has free agency, but we're gonna have a wild time because there's something else that has free agency coming up, and it's already been brewing. We've already seen Adam Schefter blow up with the NFL offseason's activities. Whether that is, and mainly the QB carousel that has been going on that has been leaving me in shock. So I'll let you take it over. What are your thoughts so far?
I don't know where to begin. We could start in Green Bay, where obviously they retained their guy, and then obviously Devontae Adams, they placed a franchise tag on. So Aaron Rodgers is back, becoming the highest paid player ever in NFL history, the highest quarterback paid ever in NFL history. And then obviously they franchise tagged Devontae Adams. So Green Bay is trying to run it back, and it's looking pretty good now that Russell Wilson's, who we'll get to next, is out of the NFC. Tom Brady is retired. Obviously, Drew Brees and Sean Payton aren't in New Orleans anymore. So obviously they choked big time to San Fran, but the Packers are looking to get out of the NFC this year, and they're going to have a great chance to do so. I'll ask you this: are you surprised that he returned?
No, I was honestly expecting him to retire. If anything, I didn't think that anything was going to happen. I thought he was going to retire, but I'm not shocked if he's playing anywhere. It's in Green Bay. As the season went on, I knew it was more and more likely Rodgers was going to stay, and then I knew it was more and more likely Devontae Adams was going to stay. The only thing that shocked me so far was the Russell Wilson trade to the Broncos, and I wouldn't even say that had happened. How quickly after Aaron Rodgers signed, they traded Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
It felt like we were talking about the Aaron Rodgers thing for like 30 minutes, and next thing you know, Russell Wilson's a Bronco.
Well, I think that tells you all you need to know, right? Rodgers was their target. Okay, Rodgers isn't available. We have to move now because the Broncos are going to be a very, very good team. They could end up being the best team in that loaded AFC West. All-around team, I'm talking. All around. Obviously, we know the powerhouse offense that the Chiefs have. They lack some defense.
Yeah.
Okay.
I definitely see where you're coming from. I think that quarterback division, if I'm Derek Carr, I'm getting the hell out. I'm sorry, Las Vegas. I'm requesting a trade. Send me to Cleveland.
Yeah.
Send me somewhere else. Get me out of that
division. But the Russell Wilson one, it's interesting though, man, because Denver became very scary very quickly. Because obviously it all depends on what Russ you're getting, right? Are you getting the Russell Wilson of the last year and a half, or did he have no help in Seattle? He was banged up, and now you got a rejuvenated Russ is cooking type of Russell Wilson here. They have some very good, quick, young receivers. Him with Jerry Jeudy, I think, is going to be awesome to watch. They have a decent offensive line. I'm pretty sure Melvin Gordon's still on a contract there, and then obviously the beast in Javonte Williams, right? So he's got two dual running back threat. And then their defense is a very, very good young defensive core. So they became very scary very quickly. I do think it is a little ridiculous to some people calling Denver one of the Super Bowl favorites or one of the favorites to come out of the AFC. That is a loaded conference in a loaded division. So I got to see it and see what Russ I'm getting first. But, man, it's interesting. And as an Eagles fan, it hurt. Because I was hoping, and it hurt a little bit more when I heard the report that Howie offered and Russ wouldn't waive his no trade clause to come here. That hurt. That stung.
I would have loved Russell Wilson, but I am a big supporter. Jalen Hurts is my favorite player in the league right now. I love Jalen Hurts. I want them to stick with him. Give him one more year. Jalen Hurts has done nothing but gotten better. It's something you can't ignore. I know the deep ball's not there, but he had one full season. You got to give him at least one more year. I can't. I have to.
We're going to now.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're going to now. And don't get me wrong. We're getting off topic here, but listen, when it comes to Jalen Hurts, right? He doesn't have it to me. He doesn't have the arm to be an NFL quarterback. He's got everything else. He's got the traits. He's got the off the field stuff. He's got the leadership. But great kid. Blah, blah. I don't care about that stuff, quite frankly. Okay, I care about winning football games, and yeah, they won football games, right? They made the playoffs, right? But you saw what happens when they get down in games and when he has to throw. I don't think he has it. Now, if Howie goes out and uses all 3 draft picks this year and has a spectacular draft and goes out and gets Nakobe Dean or Lloyd or Sauce Gardner or whatever and loads up defensively or 2 defensive players and a wide receiver, whatever it is, I'll be happy as hell. My issue was last year it was, okay, Jalen Hurts has this season to prove that he's the guy. Right or wrong, that was it because you have 3 first-round draft picks in 2022. That doesn't come along often, man. So now the fact that there's question marks, he showed he could be the guy, but maybe he's not the guy, but we're going to give him another year. Well, now what?
See, for me, with any quarterback, whether you draft them, unless like any young quarterback that you get through a draft or undrafted free agent and you make them your starter, I have a 2 to 3 year rule. You cannot judge it off of one season.
My issue with that statement
is because of the current situation.
No. Well, yes, but he wasn't brought here to be the starter.
That's fair.
He was brought here. He was a reach in the second round, first and foremost. He was brought here to be a backup. Obviously, the fraudulent starter at the time, who I absolutely loved.
Oh, I loved Carson Wentz too.
Didn't have the stones to stay here and work through everything after a down year, and he became the starter out of necessity.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and he didn't have. You're right. He did not have a great year throwing the ball, but he also helped the Eagles win a couple games.
He shows glimpses. That's fine.
It's somebody. I put it this way: you can win with Jalen Hurts, but you need to put the right team around him. But also, if you look at it, like it's not necessarily any quarterback that like all the high contract quarterbacks have amazing teams around him, and I think that's something you need to do around Jalen Hurts is build a team around him, and I think that's what the Eagles will do this year. If the Eagles do this right and they go out and they sign a true number 1 or 2 guy in like Allen Robinson, who is all I want right now.
I'm all for it.
And you go out and you draft a solid defense, and things don't work out this year because of Jalen Hurts' play. It's a loaded quarterback class next year. You have Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud.
My question for you is, what are you doing then?
Yeah,
because you only have 1 first-round draft pick next year. And if this team was a 9-win team this season, and they're going to get better roster-wise, they're going to be a 8 to 9 to 10-win team this season and be in the 20th, around the 20th pick. And you don't have any chips to bargain with and to move up and to get one of the top-tier QBs in next year's draft.
Well, I've always, since the Eagles, I found out the Eagles had 3 first-round picks. I've wanted them to trade one for an extra first-round pick next year.
You want that security
for that. Then you got 2 this year, 2 next year. It's great. You have that security if things don't work out.
I'm not opposed to that.
You go out there, you take Devin Lloyd and Stingley or Gardner if one of them are there. If not, then you take Ajabo, I think.
Ajabo.
I think I got it right first time. Ajabo. And then you go out there and you trade one of those picks. You get one next year. And then you have a security blanket. Then you still can sign Allen Robinson. You can still go on the second round and hope that Jahad Dotson or Chris Olave fall down there and you can grab a number receiver. Then you walk out there with Allen Robinson, Devontae Smith, and Jahad Dotson. You still have Quez Watkins. You got the guys out there where there is no excuse for Jalen Hurts, and he has the weapons and he has the team. But Jalen Hurts' number 2 receiver was Jalen Reagor, who's the worst football player I've ever seen.
I'll give you that. My only issue is I don't know how in a playoff game it took an entire half to get Devontae Smith the ball. But speaking of number 1 wide receivers or number 2 wide receivers that we could have had here, how'd that report of Calvin Ridley almost being an Eagle sting you? Because that hurt. That hurt.
I mean, listen, I was one of the my opinion on with Calvin Ridley was if he became an Eagle, I would be happy. But was he my number 1 target heading in the offseason? No. I wanted Chris Godwin, Mike Williams, Alvin Robinson more. I think they're more what Jalen Hurts needs, what the Eagles need, and that's a big outside target.
That's fair.
But it definitely
I just think of the youth, the speed, and the talent. Like, dude, heading into last year before the mental health leave came up, he was rated to be like, obviously I know fantasy numbers and obviously football play is a little different, but the stats, the numbers obviously, prove something. He was at some people's number 2 to 3 fantasy targets.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, trust me, I'm not sitting here saying I'd be mad. I wasn't going to be mad, but he wasn't my number 1 target. So, and all in all, happy the Eagles didn't get it done.
And kudos to the Falcons for pulling out of the deal.
Yeah, that was
handling it correctly. Because
I also think that there would have been I think the NFL would have been able to avoid it because the Falcons did know about it before it got announced. So I think the NFL would have avoided it if the Falcons didn't share that information.
Could you imagine us as Eagles fans, we trade for Calvin Ridley? Oh, yeah, we got Calvin Ridley. A week later, Calvin Ridley suspended for the 2022-2023
Yeah, I
season.
think, and if Atlanta knew it happened, I think all hatred towards Atlanta would just increase.
Big
I
time,
think
especially after the NBA playoffs last year.
after the NBA playoffs, after being rivals with the Braves, I think that just Philly and Atlanta would be ridiculous.
I agree.
So that's going to wrap it up for the first episode of season 2 on the new platform here at DSM Media, new podcast, The Sports Raid. Every Friday at 5 p.m., we will drop and cover your weekly sports news. Dylan, thank you for coming on today, man. I really appreciate it. Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you go follow Dylan on social media, on Twitter at DylanJD98. And make sure you follow me on social media. I'm on TikTok at Cole.Tomp or Twitter at CPT628. Make sure you go drop us a follow, and make sure you follow DSM Media on all platforms, whether that's here on YouTube, on Facebook at DSM Media, on Instagram at DSM.DoSomethingMajor, on Twitter at DSM Media, or on Instagram at DSM_media. Thank you guys for listening.